1. Let me tell you about this absolutely killer 1967 Chevy C10 I just found on Craigslist. This isn't your average classic truck. We're looking at a seriously well-built machine that's been given some major love and attention. Let's talk power. This beast is running a big block 454 paired with a 350 transmission, and they've topped it with an 850 double pumper Holley carb with manual choke. The engine bay is dressed to impress with chrome components everywhere. We're talking water pump, power steering pump, and a one-wire alternator. Those Mickey Thompson valve covers add that perfect hot rod touch. The stance is perfect, dropped 2 inches in the front and 4 inches in the back, sitting on 17 inches American wheels wrapped in Nitto rubber. And don't worry about stopping power. They've upgraded to 4-wheel disc brakes. The exhaust setup is fresh with 3 inches pipes, a crossover, and Flowmaster mufflers running off those hooker headers. You know this thing sounds mean. Inside, you're getting a clean 60/40ths bench seat setup and custom gauges. They've thought about reliability too. New radiator, new fuel tank, new heater core, new battery, and a mini starter. The 373 rear end with that custom diff cover helps put the power down. At $28,500, considering the market for these C10s and all the quality upgrades, it's actually in the ballpark. The odometer shows 11K miles rolled over. But with all these fresh components, that's not a major concern. The seller states it's in excellent condition, and looking at the list of upgrades and attention to detail, I'm inclined to believe them. 2. Let me tell you about this fascinating 1976 Ford F-150 I found on Craigslist. What makes this truck special is its incredible single-family ownership history. Purchased new by the seller's father in '76, and that's something you just don't see every day. This F-150 has some interesting upgrades while maintaining much of its original character. The original 360 was swapped for a 390 V8, which was a smart upgrade for these trucks. They've added Hedman headers and a custom dual exhaust setup, which probably gives it a nice, throaty sound. The 4WD system makes it a capable machine, and that heavy-duty custom rear bumper with trailer hookups shows it was built to work. What really catches my attention is the original paint. It's rare to find a 47-year-old truck still wearing its factory finish. With just 43,824 miles on the clock, this truck has been preserved rather than worn out. The current owner has kept it garaged since 2018 and maintains it with regular starts and fresh fuel, which is exactly what you want to hear. Recent maintenance in 2024 includes new spark plugs, wires, distributor components, and a steering column coupler, showing they're keeping up with the essentials. The addition of a roll bar and bed liner adds both practicality and style. At $30,000, you're paying for originality and documented history more than anything else. While that might seem steep to some, finding a well-maintained, single-family-owned F-150 from this era is increasingly rare. The truck appears to be in excellent condition based on the seller's description, and their transparency about its history and maintenance adds credibility. 3. Let's talk about this 1979 Chevy pickup that just popped up on Craigslist for $12,500. This one's got my attention because it's rocking a rebuilt 454 big block, and we all know that's a recipe for some serious fun. The seller's keeping it pretty straightforward here, which I appreciate. They've got a short bed configuration, which is always desirable for these late 70s Chevys. The odometer shows 1,500 miles, which is likely since the engine rebuild, but let's be real. These trucks are well past their original numbers. What's catching my eye here is that they've paid attention to those often overlooked details. New door rubber means no annoying wind noise or leaks, and they mention it's tight with no rattles. That's pretty impressive for a 44-year-old truck. The fresh tires with only about 100 miles on them are definitely a plus, and the carpeted bed cover adds a nice finishing touch. The seller describes the body as very straight, which is crucial for these old trucks, as they're often found with battle scars from years of work duty. They're rating the condition as good rather than excellent, which feels honest and adds credibility to their description. At $12,500 OBO, you're looking at a fair price in today's market for a clean 79 with a rebuilt big block, especially if the body is as straight as described. It's not the cheapest out there, but it's not in project truck territory either. This sounds like a solid driver you can enjoy right away. 4. Let's talk about this 1965 Ford F100 I found on Craigslist, and I've got to be straight with you. The seller's description is pretty minimal, which always makes me a bit cautious. The asking price of $23,500 is in the higher range for these trucks, and honestly, we need more details to justify that number. What we do know is that it's running a 351 Windsor engine, which is a solid power plant and a popular swap for these old Fords, but it's not the original engine. The manual transmission is a nice touch for those who love that classic driving experience. The seller claims it's fully refurbished and looking like new with new tires, but there's a disconnect here. They're rating the condition as good rather than excellent, and they're not providing any details about the restoration process, which is crucial information at this price point. Look, the 65 F100 is a fantastic classic truck with beautiful body lines, and when done right, they're absolutely stunning. But at $23,500, you'd want to see a detailed list of what's been restored when it was done, and preferably some documentation of the work. The gray paint looks clean in the listing, but we need to know more about the bodywork, interior condition, and mechanical updates. 5. Let me tell you about a pretty special find on Craigslist. A 1969 Ford F250 Camper Special Ranger that's got a story to tell. What makes this one stand out is its incredible one-owner history. And get this, they've even got all the original documentation from when it was purchased new at Burge Ford in Mesa. This is a Camper Special Ranger, which was Ford's upscale trim package back then, and it's powered by the original 360 V8 paired with an automatic transmission. With 52,000 miles showing on the odometer, this truck has lived a relatively easy life for its age. The power steering is a nice touch that makes these big trucks much more manageable. The seller states it's in excellent condition, and being a one-owner vehicle with all documentation certainly adds credibility to that claim. They've fitted new tires, which is always a good sign of ongoing maintenance. The truck reportedly runs and drives well, which is what you want to hear about a classic like this. At $26,500, we're talking serious collector territory. But here's why that might make sense. Original one-owner F250S from this era, especially Camper Special Rangers with complete documentation, are becoming increasingly rare. These trucks were typically worked hard and went through multiple owners, so finding one with this kind of history is pretty special. 6. Let me tell you about this interesting 1974 Chevy C20 I just found on Craigslist. This is one of those builds that blends classic charm with modern upgrades in a really thoughtful way. Let's dive into what makes this truck special. First off, being a former cab-over-camper truck usually means it wasn't beaten up doing heavy work duty. With just 3 owners and 105,200 miles, it's lived a relatively gentle life. The 350 engine, 5.7L, has been rebuilt less than 2,000 miles ago, and here's where it gets interesting. They've modernized it with a Fitec throttle body fuel injection system with force fuel, added a mild cam, and headers. That's a smart combination that should make this truck way more reliable and enjoyable to drive than stock. The upgrades list is impressive and shows someone really thought this through. They've added Dakota digital gauges, which look great and work better than the old analog ones. The new stereo system, LED lighting all around, and fresh interior components, door panels, carpet, dash pad, make it more comfortable and user-friendly. The practical stuff hasn't been ignored either. New alternator, starter, AC, fuel tanks, and transfer valve switch. The seller's being honest about the paint. It needs a new coat, but they mention the body is straight, which is crucial. At $17,000 OBO, considering all the mechanical and comfort upgrades, plus the rebuilt engine with modern fuel injection, you're looking at a fair price for a well-thought-out classic truck that's ready for daily use. 7. Let's get real about this 1982 Chevy dump truck I found on Craigslist, and I've got to be straight with you. This one's definitely a project. Despite the seller listing it in good condition, the description tells a different story. This old workhorse has been sitting for a couple of years, which is never great for any vehicle. and it's going to need some serious attention. The seller's honest about it needing a tow to get it out of there, so that's your first expense right there. It's running a V8 with a manual transmission, which is a solid combination for a dump truck, and the odometer shows 100,000 miles. The electric hydraulic hoist system is a plus if it's working, but given the truck's sitting status, you'll want to thoroughly check that out. The brake system needs bleeding, but after sitting for years, I'd bet you're looking at a complete brake system overhaul. Lines, master cylinder, the works. You might be dealing with seized calipers or wheel cylinders too. At $4,000, you're buying a project truck that could either be a diamond in the rough or a money pit. If you're handy with tools and need a dump truck for your business or property, this could be worth looking at. Just go into it knowing you'll need to invest some time and money to get it roadworthy again. 8. Let me tell you about this interesting 1982 Dodge Ram 150 I found on Craigslist, and there's something pretty special about this one. It's a Georgia truck with no rust, which is like finding a unicorn for these old Dodges. Let's be real here. What makes this truck stand out is its solid body condition. The seller emphasizes the clean condition of all the usual rust spots: floor pans, bed, rockers, and cab corners. For anyone who knows these old Rams, finding one without rust in these areas is increasingly rare. Under the hood, it's running the 3.7L straight 6 with an automatic transmission. Now, this isn't the powerhouse that some might want, but these slant sixes are known for being virtually indestructible when maintained properly. The seller mentions that both the engine and transmission were reportedly rebuilt recently, though you'll want to verify this claim since it's second-hand information. With 102,000 miles on the clock and a clean accident history, this truck seems to have lived a relatively gentle life. The white paint looks pretty straightforward, and while it might not be show quality, that's not what these trucks were about anyway. At $5,000, you're looking at a fair price for a solid running example of an increasingly rare truck. These early 80s Rams aren't typically collector items yet, but clean, rust-free examples are getting harder to find. This could be perfect for someone looking for a classic daily driver or a solid base for a restoration project. 9. Let me tell you about this interesting 1981 Chevy C20 work truck that's popped up on Craigslist for $6,900. This isn't your typical pickup. It's a specialized service body build with some serious work-ready features. First off, let's talk about what makes this truck special. It's got a Scoug service body, which is top-tier equipment in the work truck world. The body features diamond plate on all the opening top boxes, bedsides, and tailgate, and importantly, all the locks are working, which is crucial for a service vehicle. They've even included a multi-use rack, making this truck ready for whatever job you throw at it. Under the hood, you're getting a rebuilt big block engine paired with a rebuilt transmission. That's some serious muscle for hauling. The dual gas tank setup has been refreshed with new switchover valves and dash switch, which is a nice touch of maintenance that often gets overlooked. The odometer shows 11,745 miles rolled over, but with the rebuilt drivetrain, that's less of a concern. What's really important is that they mention it's rust-free, which is huge for these square-body Chevys. At $6,900, considering the service body, rebuilt drivetrain, and overall condition, you're looking at a fair price for a work-ready truck. This would be perfect for someone in trades, maintenance, or anyone needing a reliable service vehicle. It's got all the right equipment and updates to make it both functional and dependable. 10. Let me tell you about this interesting 1962 Ford Ranchero I found on Craigslist, and I've got to be straight with you about both its charm and its challenges. This isn't your typical Ranchero. It's been modified with some smart upgrades for better drivability. The original engine has been swapped for a younger 250 inline-six from a 78 Fairmont, paired with a Nissan Jatco automatic transmission with a B&M floor shifter. That's an interesting combo that should provide reliable power while keeping the inline-six character these vehicles are known for. The seller's been upfront about the good and bad, which I really appreciate. On the positive side, there's a lot of fresh hardware. New header with dual exhaust, new tires, and a Ford 8 inches rear end with 3.55 gears. That's a sweet spot for both around town and highway driving. They've also added some nice touches like aluminum slot mags, and relocated the battery to the smuggler's hatch, which is rust-free, importantly. Now, let's talk about the issues because there are some. The vacuum wiper motor needs rebuilding, the speedometer needs calibration, and it needs door and kick panels. More concerning are the rust bubbles in the doors and hood, plus some cracked filler in the wheel wells. That's something to factor into your budget for future repairs. At $9,000, you're buying a driver-quality Ranchero with some smart upgrades, but also some cosmetic challenges ahead. The price feels fair considering the mechanical improvements and current market, but remember, you'll need to address those rust issues before they get worse. 11. Let's talk about this 1977 GMC Sierra that's just popped up on Craigslist for $17,500. And I've got to be honest, the seller's description leaves us wanting a lot more details. What we do know is that this was a previously unfinished project that the seller has just completed. The heart of this build is a 350 crate motor paired with a rebuilt turbo 400 transmission, both with about 10,000 miles on them. That's a solid, reliable powertrain combo. The 12-bolt Posey rear end has also been rebuilt, which is a valuable upgrade for these trucks. The seller mentions lots of new parts, but doesn't list them, which is a bit frustrating when you're looking at a $17,500 price tag. The truck appears to be finished in red, and they're claiming excellent condition, but without more specific details about the restoration, it's hard to fully evaluate the value. The odometer shows 100K miles, rolled over, but with the crate motor and rebuilt transmission, the chassis miles are less relevant here. At $17,500, we're in serious classic truck territory. And while these late 70s GMCs are climbing in value, you'd really want to see a detailed list of all the work done and parts installed. For anyone interested, I'd strongly recommend getting a complete breakdown of the build, including bodywork, suspension, brakes, and any other upgrades. 12. Let me tell you about this super interesting 1971 GMC Sprint on Craigslist. And if you're not familiar with the Sprint, think of it as GMC's version of the El Camino, which makes it a pretty rare bird. What we've got here is a seriously upgraded example running a GM Performance HO 350 engine paired with a built 700R4 transmission. That's a fantastic combination that gives you both performance and highway cruising capability. The 12-bolt rear end with Richmond gears shows they weren't messing around with the power handling department. The suspension has been thoughtfully upgraded with boxed trailing arms and an anti-sway bar, which helps handle all that power and improves the overall driving dynamics. The stainless welded exhaust is a nice touch that should last basically forever. The seller's being honest about its performance, mentioning it's pretty fast for as heavy as it is, which is refreshingly candid. These car-based trucks are hefty machines, but with that HO 350 setup, it should move pretty well. The odometer shows 15K miles rolled over. But with all these performance upgrades, that's not really the important number here. At $28,500, we're talking serious collector territory. But here's why that might make sense. Sprints are much rarer than their El Camino cousins, and this one has been built with quality performance parts. The combination of the HO 350, built 700R4, and upgraded suspension makes this more than just a pretty face. It's a properly sorted performance machine. 13. We're checking out this 1974 Chevy C10 that just popped up on Craigslist for $18,000. Let me tell you, the C10s from this era are absolute classics, and this one's caught my attention. The seller's got a clean title truck here, with a rebuilt 350 cubic inch V8, paired with an automatic transmission, a combo that's pretty much the sweet spot for these trucks. What's really impressive is that they've kept all the documentation from the rebuild, which is honestly like finding gold when you're dealing with classic vehicles. The 74 C10 is from that perfect era of Chevy trucks, with those iconic square body lines that everyone loves. At $18K, considering today's classic truck market and that it's been rebuilt with documentation, it's actually in the ballpark of fair pricing if everything's as good as described. These C10s are getting harder to find in good condition, and they're really starting to climb in value. Just remember, if you're interested, you'll want to check out that rebuild paperwork and give it a thorough inspection. But man, there's something special about these old Chevys. They just don't make them like this anymore. 14. We're looking at this interesting 1985 Ford Econoline that's popped up on Craigslist for $3,000. And honestly, this could be a pretty solid deal for the right person. Let's talk about what we're looking at here. It's rocking the legendary 300 cubic inch inline-six engine, which is basically Ford's bulletproof workhorse from this era. With just 135,000 miles, these engines are barely broken in. They're known to go well beyond 300K when maintained right. What really catches my attention here is the recent work done. New transmission, new clutch, fresh brakes, new exhaust system with a catalytic converter, and new rear tires. That's a lot of major maintenance items checked off the list. And the fact that it's a manual with overdrive makes it kind of special. These aren't super common to find anymore. For $3,000, you're getting a classic work van with some serious recent investments in reliability. Sure, it's not going to win any beauty contests. It's a 38-year-old work van after all. But these Econolines were built to last. The 4-speed manual transmission might seem old school, but with that overdrive, it'll actually do decent on the highway. If you're in the market for a reliable work van and don't mind the vintage vibes, this could be a really smart buy. Just remember to check for the usual rust spots these old Fords can get, especially around the wheel wells and bottom edges. But with all that recent maintenance, someone's definitely been taking care of this old workhorse. 15. We're checking out this sweet 1979 GMC High Sierra that's listed for $17,800 on Craigslist. And let me tell you, these square-body trucks are seriously hot right now. This particular High Sierra is rocking the V8 engine with a manual transmission, which is already a pretty desirable combo. What makes it even better? It's a 4x4, which is exactly what most collectors and enthusiasts are hunting for. The truck's showing 100,000 miles on the clock, which honestly isn't bad at all for a 44-year-old workhorse. It's wearing a blue paint job, and while the seller's keeping the description pretty brief, they're rating the condition as good with a clean title. Now at $17,800, we're definitely in collector territory pricing. But that's where the market is for these square-body GMCs, especially 4x4S with manual transmissions. These High Sierras were GMC's upscale trim level back in the day, equivalent to Chevy's Silverado, and they came with some nice touches that set them apart from the base models. The combination of V8 power, manual transmission, and 4WD makes this a really desirable setup. It's basically the holy trinity for classic truck enthusiasts. Look, if you're in the market for a classic square-body pickup, these prices might seem steep compared to just a few years ago, but that's where the market has gone. These trucks have a huge following, and good ones are getting harder to find. Just make sure to do a thorough inspection of the usual rust spots and mechanical components before pulling the trigger. But man, there's something special about these late 70s GMCs. They've got that perfect blend of classic style and rugged capability that just never goes out of style. 16. We're diving into something really special. A 1971 Ford F-250 Camper Special that's popped up for $17,500. And this isn't your average old Ford. Let me tell you why I'm excited about this one. First off, according to the Marty Report, which is like the holy grail of Ford documentation, this is one of just 8 trucks out of 722,000 F-Series built that year with this specific configuration. That's seriously rare territory, folks. What makes this truck even more interesting is that factory generator setup. It's a camper special with original power plant equipment, which is incredibly hard to find these days. The 390 V8 is a strong runner. There's even a Blackstone oil analysis to prove it. And it's paired with the bulletproof C6 automatic transmission. The seller's been thorough with maintenance too. We're talking new tires, water pump, reconditioned radiator, rebuilt carb, fresh belts and hoses, and a complete front suspension rebuild with a new steering box just done in October 2023. That's $3,008 worth of work right there. The odometer shows 42,248, but it has rolled over, which is expected for a truck this age. What's cool is we know the truck's history. It's a 3-owner vehicle that started life in Seattle and has recently made its way across the country. It's Haggerty insured for $20,900, which gives you an idea of its value in today's market. Now, let's be honest here. The body and interior are unrestored, so don't expect a show queen. But that's actually perfect for someone who wants an authentic, unmolested example of these increasingly rare trucks. At $17,500, considering its rarity, documented history, and recent mechanical work, you're looking at a solid investment in a piece of Ford truck history. 17. We're looking at something really special. A 1965 Chevy C20 custom short bed fleetside that's listed for $27,500. And let me tell you, this is one clean California truck. What we've got here is a beautiful example of these increasingly desirable 60s Chevys, and the details are pretty impressive. Under the hood, you've got the classic 283 small block V8, paired with that awesome vintage 4-speed Granny manual transmission, a combo that's just perfect for these trucks. What really catches my attention is the extensive list of new parts and upgrades. We're talking a fresh 2-barrel Rochester carb, new fuel system components, a complete clutch assembly, all new front end work, and a modern disc brake conversion up front with oversized drums in the rear. That's some serious attention to drivability and safety right there. The California heritage really shows through with the lack of major rust or rot. That's huge for these old trucks. They've done some really nice custom touches too, like that solid oak bed with stainless inlay and a custom tonneau cover. The American racing wheels wrapped in Michelin rubber give it that perfect stance, and the new custom exhaust system probably makes it sound just right. At $27,500, we're definitely in the premium territory for these C20s. But considering the California origin, all the mechanical updates and those custom touches, plus the fact it's a desirable short bed fleetside, the price actually makes sense in today's market. These 60s Chevys are really coming into their own as collectibles, and finding one this clean with so many thoughtful upgrades isn't easy. 18. We're looking at something pretty unique. A 1955 Chevy Apache that's been transformed into what I'd call a piece of automotive art, listed at $3,700. Now, I've got to be completely honest with you here. This isn't your typical running and driving classic truck, and that's important to understand right up front. What we're looking at is essentially a very creative transformation of an old farm truck into a vintage gas station display piece. The seller has taken what was apparently a rough, non-running Apache and turned it into something that's got some serious nostalgic curb appeal. They've given it fresh paint, new tires, and installed a new wooden bed that's been stained and cleared. The hand-painted logos on the doors add that authentic vintage service station vibe. Here's where we need to be real. This truck hasn't run in who knows how long, and comes with no title. The odometer shows 45,287 miles, but that's probably not too relevant given its current state. While the seller mentions it could potentially be brought back to life with enough work, it does have a V8. That would be quite a project and would require going through the bonded title process. But here's the thing. At $3,700, if you're looking for an amazing piece of Americana for your business, shop, or property, this could be a killer deal. These 55 Apaches have beautiful lines, and even as a static display, it's got that perfect vintage look that photographers and businesses love. The seller mentions they've done several photo shoots with it, and I can totally see why. These old trucks just ooze character. 19. We're looking at a 1965 Ford F100 that's listed for $3,500, and I've got to be completely straight with you about what we're looking at here. This is essentially a non-running project or display piece, and that's important to understand right from the start. The truck's got some interesting history. It's an old 6-cylinder model with a 3-speed manual transmission, showing 76,122 miles on the clock. But here's the reality check. It hasn't run in quite some time, and there's no title with it. The current owner has basically transformed it into what they're calling a prop truck. And honestly, that's probably its best use right now. They've done some work to make it presentable. Fresh paint job, new wood in the bed, and 4 new tires, so it can at least be rolled around. The sides of the bed are removable if you want to go for that classic flatbed look. It's actually become pretty popular to use these old trucks as lawn ornaments or business displays. Lots of folks are using them as garden features with flowers in the bed, which is pretty cool. At $3,500, you're not buying a running classic truck. You're buying a piece of Americana that could either be a cool display piece or the start of a long-term project. These old F100s have beautiful lines and tons of character, even when they're just sitting pretty. Just be realistic about what you're getting. This is more of a conversation piece or photo prop in its current state than a vehicle. 20. We're checking out this interesting 1979 Chevy El Camino that's up for grabs at $10,000. And let me tell you what makes this one worth talking about. This is one of those classic car-truck hybrids that's got a pretty solid setup going for it. The heart of this El Camino is a 350 crate motor, which is already a big plus. You're getting a fresh engine rather than a tired original. It's breathing through a dual exhaust system with an X-pipe and resonators, so you know this thing probably has a pretty sweet sound to it. The seller's reporting 146,000 miles on the clock, and it comes with the comfort features you'd want. Power steering, power brakes, and air conditioning. Though heads up, the AC needs some attention. At $10,000, you're in the middle range for these El Caminos. The crate motor is definitely a value add, and if the body is as clean as described, it could be a solid buy. These El Caminos are unique vehicles. They've got the comfort of a Malibu with the utility of a pickup, and they're becoming more appreciated every year. Just remember to check all the usual G-body trouble spots: frame rails, rear wheel wells, and floor pans, and factor in getting that AC sorted if you're in a warm climate. But overall, if everything checks out in person, this could be a pretty cool classic that you could actually use and enjoy.